Good afternoon, everyone. We got about another minute and then we'll get started. Just a few quick rules. Everyone's going to be muted except for myself, the moderator, and Lieutenant Colonel Gerstein, our presenter. At some point, we may need someone to read something. We'll do is we'll have someone raise their hand. They'll get unmuted and then allowed to open their microphone. Other than that, we will have the chat open. If you have any questions or anything to add to the discussion, feel free to add them right into the chat. And as we go through the chat and the presentation, we'll answer some of those questions as we go along. And at the very end of the session, we will have a session survey link that is required. I would recommend making sure you get that before you exit out of the meeting room. Once you're gone, you may not be able to get back to it. Without further ado, Lieutenant Colonel Gerstein, the room is all yours.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Colonel LaPrey for plugging the session during his remarks this morning. I'd also like to congratulate our moderator, Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Roche, on his selection as both Maryland Wing's Director of Finance of the Year and Webmaster of the Year. So we have a very active, well-decorated member taking care of us in this session today, and I appreciate your help getting me up and going. So my name is Lieutenant Colonel Jake Gerstein. I am Maryland Wing's Director of Recruiting and Retention as of September. So who is Jacob Gerstein, and how do you send me your awesome ideas? Well, to answer the latter one, my email address is on the screen. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I joined CAP in 2006 as a member of Maryland Wing. I later transferred to National Headquarters as part of the National History Program. I've served on the cadre of 6 encampments. I transferred to NatCap in 2015, where I commanded a squadron for 3 years, and I returned to Maryland Wing in 2019. I'm an observer, a ground team member, and a ground branch director. I'm also in the Maryland Defense Force's 10th Medical Regiment, and I served 14 years as a DoD civilian, including deploying to Afghanistan, where we did manage to have a little fun, twice. And that American flag and Maryland Wing patch are on the wall at Maryland Headquarters. My wife, Major Colleen McCormick, is also in CAP, and we have an 11-month-old son. So just about a year and 12 years, 11 years and 1 month, I can do math, until he's a cadet. I also promise all of you this is the only slide in my presentation that builds. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about a lot of things. Things I want you to keep in mind while we're going through the slides is showing value and nurturing community. And here's the agenda. We're going to talk some numbers. We're going to talk about messaging a little bit. We're going to talk about benefits of CAP and benefits to CAP. We're going to talk about the national plan that General Smith mentioned in his keynote. Talk about some actions you can take, introduce the volunteer match platform, and there will be plenty of time for Q&A. During the Q&A, this can be a discussion, so if you get a question and you've got an awesome answer to it, throw it in the chat, raise your hand, and this can certainly be a discussion. I do not have all of the answers. Okay, numbers. Cadets are down 18% overall, and seniors are down 9.2% overall as compared to October 2019. The good news is we've made progress on the diversity front. We've had a 2.9% increase in females and a 1.4% increase in ethnic diversity as of July 2020. The pipeline of new members has significantly decreased. That's a problem. It's a problem that's getting better, but it's still a problem. Where we're really hurting for numbers is on the recruiting front. So let's talk about Maryland Wing's membership count. This is from July through October. You can see seniors as the gray line on the bottom, cadets light blue line right above that, and then combined our total numbers. So we've had a drop of about 100 from July to now. We've been holding relatively steady since August. And you might think, oh, it's not so bad. What are we getting so concerned about? Well, let me show you 2020 as compared to 19. And the nice green line on top is 2019. The red line on the bottom is 2020. So October 2019 to October 2020, we're looking at a pretty big gap, and that gap widened from September to October. This is where the concern comes in. We need to bend that trend line. Usually the fall we'd be coming up in numbers from open houses, school recruiting, things like that. We haven't had those opportunities this year. So, context for why this is such a concern. I'm now going to flip over to talking about messaging some. And this is where I'd like a brave volunteer to read a tweet that I'm going to show next. If you can make yourself known, I can't see the chat at the moment because of how I have my slides up, but if you could make yourself known. And
anybody wants to read it, raise your hand and I'll bring you in as a presenter and you can read it through. You need a microphone to do it though.
I'm going to ask you to read it.
Any volunteers?
Enthusiasm.
Come on, don't be shy. Somebody wants to do it. No takers?
We must have a budding PAO somewhere here. Okay, well, Lieutenant Colonel Roche, could I ask you to do it?
I will do my best.
Outstanding. Let me get it up the screen with enthusiasm and gusto, please.
Can you imagine your loved ones coming down from the attic with your medals, achievements, and honors, asking about the time you shaped the strategic environment? How would you even begin to explain that by being part of the shaping?
Thank you. Thank you. So how would you explain what this tweet means even? What is Space Force trying to do here? They've used confusing terminology and word choice. It's very amorphous overall. If you look at the time frame, they're trying to get someone to think of their future self, thinking of what their past self did. And it's difficult to grasp the connection between the text of the tweet and the organization being advertised. I, in case you couldn't tell already, don't think this is an awesome example of messaging. It poses some challenges, and it could have done a better job, in my opinion. So we're now going to look at a few CAP posts that do a better job. Let's talk about this one. It's got broad appeal. It doesn't assume any prior knowledge of CAP. It does give some specific details. It keeps the explanation high level. It's clear, it's concise, and it's got a photo to provide some excellent context. This is an awesome broad appeal introduction message to someone who doesn't know what CAP is, but might be enticed to find out a little bit more. So let's look at something that's a bit more detailed. This one talks about the cadet program. It focuses on just one of our missions. So if you do this, be sure to pick a mission that is relevant to the audience that you are pitching CAP to. It lists some specific reasons the reader might be interested in CAP. This could be a parent learning about what cadets do, what their kid could do. This could be a cadet reading it, going, wow, that sounds fun. I want to learn to lead. I want to hike. I want to camp. And it avoids jargon. Notice the phrase O flights does not appear anywhere in there, which is good, because our O flights are really awesome. But when you're telling a prospective member, you get to do orientation flights. Orientation to what? What am I flying? What am I flying in? They've never heard that term. We all know what it means, but they don't. Now we're going to look at a specific compelling story. Storytelling is awesome. Humans like stories. People are wired to follow narrative, to like stories. So this gives them that story. It's got media content, that's a video, YouTube, and it does a really good job of balancing between the needs and interests of a member and non-members. So this is a product that's out there that could help keep members engaged. It's also something that could be used to advertise what CAP provides for an audience of non-members. You get a double bang for your buck here. So in messaging overall, keep in mind your audience, keep in mind what you're trying to convey, keep in mind the word choices you use. We have to talk to people who don't know anything about CAP as if they don't know anything about CAP. We need to describe things in ways that people can relate to. And we need to make it compelling, and stories are great ways to do that. Speaking of compelling, let's move on to talking about some benefits. Because everyone joins CAP for a reason. They're looking to get something out of it. They're looking for a benefit. And CAP doesn't have members just to have members. We need benefits that those members provide to the organization. We need them for a reason. So with the cadet side, what are benefits to cadets? Leadership training and practice, aerospace, STEM, cyber programs. CAP has done a great job promoting those lately. Exposure to and experience in different career fields. Think of staff duty analysis, cadet duty assignments, things like that. You got a cadet who wants to be a journalist, he can be the cadet PAO. National Cadet Special Activities provide ways to focus in on that. IACE, opportunity for international travel. Real world search and rescue, disaster relief, and homeland security missions. You get to make an impact using your skills. You get to serve your community, state, and nation. You play your cards right, you can get your pilot's license. To me, one of the coolest things about CAP's cadet program is it's just one of our 3 missions, which means that our cadets have the opportunity to implement what they learn in the cadet program while executing our aerospace education and our operations mission. It's not just that CAP is a leadership lab, and we hear that phrase a lot. It is true, but it's not just that. It's that CAP gives our cadets a framework to use the entire world as a leadership lab. Yet, so many of our cadets leave CAP after graduating high school, going off to college, turning 21. We haven't successfully convinced them, or even maybe told them, that ongoing service to CAP provides similar benefits in the adult world. So on that note, we spend a lot of time thinking about and talking about what the value of CAP is to its cadets. What about our seniors? Senior members are not one of our 3 missions. Senior members exist to support and execute the 3 missions. So what does CAP have to offer them while they're giving us their time, their money, their effort in doing that? Well, this list is going to look very familiar. They get leadership training and practice. They get aerospace, STEM, and cyber programs that they can participate. They get exposure to and experience in different career fields. They can go staff National Cadet Special Activities. In fact, with NISA, they can participate. They get to do international travel as escorts on IACE. They get to participate in real-world search and rescue, disaster relief, and homeland security missions, having that immediate impact. They get to serve the community, state, and nation, and while we can't give and get a senior member their pilot's license, we can upgrade it if they're a pilot, or for those who don't have a pilot license but want one, aircrew training is a spectacular opportunity. I also encourage everyone to think about the benefits to the organization that a specific member can provide. People want to be needed. People want to bring value. And not just in a warm body way or a give us your dues money way, although those aren't necessarily bad, because sometimes you do just need someone to be that second senior member, and we really do want people's dues money. But people want to be wanted for something they specifically bring to the table. Find that thing and help the prospective member you're talking to understand how, by joining your unit, a thing they specifically have will help your unit accomplish its mission. And the same applies to retaining current senior members. Help them understand the value that they specifically bring. So when I commanded a NatCap squadron, we had senior members join for a variety of reasons. We had mothers who had been out of the workforce for a while, raising their children, which is very hard work in and of itself. And they may have, say, a master's degree in HR, but they don't have any recent HR experience on their resume. So they're looking to, besides just volunteer and give back, they're looking to get some HR experience current on their resume. We had recent college grads who are going, all right, I'm having some challenges in the job market, but I just finished this aerospace degree. I really love aerospace. I'm passionate about it. What can I do to both fill my time while continuing to build skills and take leadership opportunities and, yes, get resume bullets while I'm hunting for that first job? And some people said, okay, well, they get that first job, you lose them. Maybe yes, maybe no, but say we do. Say we invest some time into them and we lose them. They've now had a positive experience with CAP. They know about our organization. They can become a champion, a cheerleader for us, even if they're not still an active member. So think about those ancillary benefits as well. Let's move on to some actions. Let's move on to the national plan. I should really read my agenda slide. The national plan, there's a lot of text on this slide, and I don't expect you to read it all right now. What I'd like you to take away is what I've highlighted from this slide. Even during the height of a global pandemic, new Civil Air Patrol members continue joining our organization. That's important. We still have appeal, but not at the scale needed to offset the natural attrition of members, especially cadets. That's that gap you saw on the numbers slide earlier. And all of this in the national plan is leading towards a nationwide open house week that's taking place in April 21. So for those of you who are in General Smith's keynote, this is the national plan that he mentioned, the National Recruiting and Retention Team had put together. And we're gonna breeze through the three sections, the short, medium, and long-term actionable items. Again, I don't expect you to read all of this. A link is gonna go into the chat, and I do highly encourage you to pull down the document and read it later. So short-term actionable items. These have mostly NHQ level OPRs assigned against them, but squadrons are really where the mission gets done, right? So what can your squadron, your group, our wing do to support these efforts? Let's look at the third item. Host monthly online wing or region-wide single day, cadet and senior great start sessions, et cetera, et cetera. What does a great start for seniors look like? Have you run one? Do you have good ideas or lessons learned from it? Does your squadron need a great start? Have you upper channeled that to wing already? Or are you already planning a great start? If so, could it be open much more widely? Think group-wide, wing-wide, or even neighboring wings. And remember, in the virtual environment we're operating in these days, neighboring could be across the country or the world because we do have overseas squadrons. How can you get more bang for your buck for the effort you might be putting into something like this already? And that's by widening the participation, getting a bigger pool of people in there, getting more experience. Really brings a lot to the table. What about emails or postcards to those who have left in the last couple of years? That's roughly in the middle here. Sure, NHQ can do that with its databases and with its mail processing and all that, but a squadron could make phone calls to their former members who might still be local. And that's much more of a personal connection, and it directly supports these short-term actionable items. So looking at the midterm ones, social media advertising, we'll take that one first. That's big. Where are people online? Ask your cadets and then challenge them to work this problem through to completion. It's a great leadership opportunity. Also ask your younger senior members. Also ask your social media savvy, not younger senior members. And the synergy with homeschooling and virtual learning, we have a huge opportunity here as an organization. CAP and homeschooling have always been a good fit, and there's been a lot of partnership in the past. As this expands, as there's more virtual learning, again, big opportunity. Remember AEMs. AEMs, aerospace education members, pay a one-time fee, and then they get to stay AEMs for as long as they want, as long as they renew for free each year. So when you get an AEM, set a reminder to call them a month or so out from when they expire each year. Just check in. If they've been active, thank them for that. If they haven't been active, ask what they need to get active. And then these long-term actionable items. There is, as has been mentioned, a National Open House Week, 5 April to 11 April 2021. That's what this plan is building towards. So put it in your calendar. Start thinking about what your unit's going to do, maybe in person if we're at a point where we can support that, maybe virtually if we're not, have a plan A, have a plan B, probably have a plan C. But start looking at what you can do now to build towards that effort and support these things locally. So now we're going to talk about actions. What can I do? What can you do? Well, you're here, and that's a great start. So thank you for coming to the session. I appreciate it. I want you to read that national plan. As I mentioned, there's a link in chat, and think about how you align with it and how you can take advantage of it. And I want you to put the National Open House Week in your calendar now. So I'm going to give everyone about 30 seconds to do that. Okay, hopefully you all have that in your calendars now, and it'll be a nice reminder as you look through what's coming up in your lives that this is something to help your unit build towards.
Real quick, we do have a question, if you don't mind.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Lieutenant Colonel De Jesus, is there a way of using e-services to find out who left my squadron? And I noticed squadron numbers dropped recently. When I click the roster and see who's there, not who left, how do I do this for personnel who left over the past 2 years?
Okay, I believe, unfortunately, in e-services, there is only a way to look at the last 90 days. I do not know the path to that report off the top of my head, but if you cannot find it, email me and I will make sure to help you with that. If we're looking longer back, what I would suggest is looking at old squadron rosters. If you have any that have been saved off, often they're uploaded as part of subordinate unit inspections, or personnel might have old copies. You might have old sign-in sheets you can dig through and do a compare and contrast to who was on it and who's not. If you're having trouble getting contact info for those folks, if you're just not finding anything, I would recommend reaching out to membership services at national headquarters. Often that they can produce additional reports and additional information that you can't get through e-services as with the permissions that you or I have. And if you really run into barriers, tell me, please. I want to know if this is something that National is asking folks to do that can't be done, because then that's something that I and other wing and region level recruiting and retention folks can up channel and request to be made easier. Because I talk about reducing barriers later, but we also need to reduce barriers for ourselves. So thank you for that question. If I didn't fully answer it, shout and I will take another stab at it, or send me an email. Okay, so I want you to remember all of our membership categories: patron members, aerospace education members. Not everyone joins for the same reasons, so find out what's drawn someone to our organization and use the appropriate membership category to really customize that experience. There's also cadet sponsor members. If they're saying, I want to get involved, but I can't commit to a duty position, I'm just really here because my kid's here, and I want to help out, maybe chaperone now and then, the uniform thing looks too hard. Okay, that's fine. That's what the cadet sponsor member category is for. So we have that ability to take advantage of what they're willing to bring to the table. Let's make sure we're using that. Get creative. So I want you to think like not you. You're already here at the conference. You've given up some of your Saturday to come listen to myself and the other speakers, to brainstorm, to be here virtually with the rest of the wing. That is not what everyone in our organization does, and that's okay. Everyone can commit at different levels and contribute in different levels, and that's okay. But thinking about what gets you jazzed and what gets you excited is awesome and good and will help you. Also be sure to think about what can pull in people who have different interests, different availability, different levels of commitment. Someone who 4 meetings a month might be too hard. Maybe they can give you 1 or 2. Maybe they can give you a few a quarter. But there are ways to take advantage of that. And then on the creativity note, none of the ideas in the national plan are very radical, or at least not very radical for CAP. I don't know. Maybe some of them are. But radical ideas and radical implementations of those ideas are out there. And one of the reasons I'm here is to help test ideas that are currently untested or untested in CAP. So let me know what your most out-of-the-box ideas are, and let's figure out how to try them. I am up for a challenge. I enjoy challenges, and I hope you do too. So, you've got that crazy left field idea. Let's hear it. Let's talk about it, and let's see what we can do. I also want you to share and amplify good ideas. That feeds right into it. If something works or if something doesn't work for a unit, let me know, and I'll do the same. Reach across squadrons, reach across wings, reach across the region to discuss this. Join the Recruiting and Retention Facebook group online. Connect with other people in your group. Figure out ways you can help each other and share and amplify. Find out where people are online locally. Virtually locally, right? Where does your local homeschool group meet? What platform are they on? Where are the kids from your high school meeting up after school online? What platform are they on? Find out, and then figure out how to get a presence there. Virtual engagement, it offers up a whole new set of possibilities, really, for both member participation and for recruiting and retention. So, let's see, focusing on people's needs through that virtual engagement is important. It's focusing on people's needs through in-person engagement is also very important, but as you heard Colonel LaPrey say earlier, some of our squadrons are having to roll back. There are more restrictions due to the wise precautions that are being put in place for safety. So keeping that virtual engagement and serving needs both in this moment and in the longer term are critical. And speaking of in the moment, another selling point, General Smith highlighted in his remarks earlier this morning that Maryland Wing is leading the way in CAP's COVID response, which is awesome. A lot of people are feeling, this is inside and outside of CAP, are feeling sometimes helpless about COVID. What we're doing in CAP is making clear contributions to COVID response. So they can join us, and after initial training, after getting qualified, after this, after that, they can make meaningful contributions, i.e. they can do something about COVID by joining our organization. And if they don't join in time to do something about COVID, they can do something about the next one. That is a powerful thing, giving people something to do about a problem. We talked about connecting with homeschooling and distance learning earlier, and something that this pandemic has really brought to the forefront for CAP is making opportunities for virtual volunteering. As CAP, as a national organization, our lack of focus on virtual volunteerism puts us at a disadvantage when compared to similarly sized nonprofits. Virtual volunteerism has been growing really at an incredible rate since the 90s, and COVID has only amplified that trend for us and for other organizations. And COVID has proven that CAP can do many of our functions entirely or partially remotely. So how do we best leverage that now and continue to leverage it for the post-COVID world? Anything we do now to build our virtual capacity is going to help us later with members or prospective members who can't make meeting nights because of other commitments, live in an area where a squadron isn't nearby, maybe lack transportation, maybe have other challenges. Keeping those virtual opportunities open later while honing them now will serve us well for years as an organization. So, and keep in mind all of these different things. Keep in mind the person who doesn't want to support, let me back up, who does want to support but doesn't want to join. They just flat out do not want to join. They don't want to do the paperwork. but they think it's a cool organization. What can you do with them? You can ask them to give you opportunities to talk about CAP. You can ask them to sponsor a member. When I commanded my squadron, I ran into a number of folks who simply didn't have the time to join. They couldn't give me any meetings a month, but they thought what I was doing and what the unit was doing was really cool and wanted to support it. I also had members who had financial challenges, who could give me time, who could give me enthusiasm, but maybe couldn't pay their dues or buy a uniform. So I combined the two. And we had a pool of people who would give us basically what the wing dues were every year, and then just write a check to the squadron. And then we could cover the membership dues for some of our seniors. It's taking what people are willing to provide and figuring out how to use it to help the mission. All right, now we're going to talk about volunteer match briefly, because I want to leave plenty of time for Q&A. So volunteer match is a platform online that allows you to put out basically virtual vacancies and talk about your squadron or your wing or your unit or your group, wherever you're looking for people. And when we used this at my squadron, we improved not only the number of potential recruits, but also we improved our demographics, age, gender, race, and ethnicity. We improved our skill set. We used it to bring in people who had a skill set we lacked, and then we just need to teach them how to do it in CAP. And we brought our overall number of actual new members up. We created vacancies to fill specific gaps, such as specific particular duty positions or closely related positions. And here was the key, using industry and civilian vocabulary. So we weren't looking for a personnel officer. We were looking for a human resources manager, a human resources specialist. It helped us find people who are interested in doing pro bono work, because you hear about we are professional volunteers in CAP. So we're really looking for pro bono work from our legal folks, from our CPAs, from our public affairs professionals. It helped us find people who are motivated by the type of work they'll be doing, not just the organization, and people with unique and rare skill sets. We anticipate piloting this at the Maryland wing level with a couple of wing level vacancies very, very soon. I was actually just chatting with the chief of staff about this over lunch. And I've put out a request to the group commander that groups identify and consolidate squadron's critical vacancies. I've already started getting data back from that. We'll use this information when we move to using this as a platform for squadron level positions to start out with trying to fill some of those biggest pain points. If this sounds cool to you, that's awesome. Do not go out, I say again, do not go out and buy a paid account on Volunteer Match. It's about $100 a year, and Wing is funding one, which we will have set up soon, and you'll be able to leverage that. There's no need for your squadron to pay for one on your own, and we would strongly prefer to keep this centralized so we can have unified messaging and avoid confusing prospective volunteers with what could appear to be multiple competing organizations. So my intent is that the wing assist with the onboarding and mentoring of these and other new members. This is still in the planning phase, and whatever the result is, whatever the plan and the outcome is, will require support from the squadrons. So it's not a free lunch, but it's a nutritious one at discount. My plan is for the wing to do some of the initial screening so squadrons get prospective members who have at least demonstrated some level of commitment and are a good fit for the unit, for example, geographically. This is a lot of work. At Tuskegee, in the NatCap squadron I commanded, this method had the lowest prospective to joining conversion ratio, but it brought us the highest total number of new members because of the sheer volume it works at. So we had a lot of people expressing interest, a lot of people coming and visiting. And there's a benefit to that, because even if they don't join, if they have a positive experience with this, they might mention CAP to someone else. And the last thing I'll mention is when we bring in new members from Volunteer Match, when we bring in new members from any source really, it is critical to get all those new members engaged and feeling useful as soon as possible. Otherwise you lose them. And this is where I disagree with one element of the new education and training approach, which is picking a specialty track around level 2. That's fine if a member shows up and doesn't know what they want to do. and really just wants to get involved because they care about CAP as an organization. But when we're targeting people for specific skills, they need to know what they're coming in to do from day one. They need to know why they're going through this level 1 training, why they're getting a uniform. It's so that they can get to this goal of doing what they came here to do. And for any member, the sooner you can identify that goal to get them motivated towards, and the sooner you can get them that thing, just like the sooner you can get a cadet up on an O flight when they join, the more engaged and active they're going to be, and the more likely it is you keep them. Now, if they've been there 2 months and they came in to be a personnel officer, and it turns out that they got really sucked into ES and that's what they want to do instead, that's fine. That's great. And you've kept them engaged with that goal until that point, until what they found a better goal. So I'm going to move to Q&A in just a moment. I'm going to revisit the bluff that I put up earlier. Show the value, find and meet needs. Find and meet needs that people have that CAP can fill. Figure out what CAP's needs are and how you fill them with the recruits you need. With cadets who are motivated to join and excel in the program, with senior members who are motivated to contribute back in their way. Communicate clearly. I've talked a lot about that. Communicate in terms that your audience can understand. Communicate without jargon. Communicate with enthusiasm. Caveat, manage expectations. Sell the program you have now. Also sell the program you can be with someone's help, but be clear that that is a to-be state and will require work on everyone's parts. CAP does so many things. Even in this environment, we do so many awesome things. But your unit may not do all of them. There may be significant training required to do some of them. So we don't want to tell the pilot that they can join and be doing O flights tomorrow. First, we need to know how many hours they have. We need to explain to them the training they'll need to go through. We don't need to present this as a terrible thing you have to suffer through to do the thing you want. We can pitch it as training. We can pitch it as getting them up to speed, professionalization. Don't they want to be a part of a program that does the right thing the right way all the time? Because that's what we're doing. But manage those expectations, because a mismatch between expectations and reality is a big challenge to overcome later on. It's a lot easier to overcome early. And then build a community. So transcend those needs, provide opportunities for connections, reduce and eliminate barriers, especially with a lot of people quarantining, self-isolating. That weekly squadron meeting can be a real important touch point for your folks. It can matter a lot. It can be the highlight of the week if it's really a community, because someone will come and join for specific goals and objectives, but they will stay for the community that you have at your unit. So when you're talking to someone who's joining, who's thinking about joining, and you're talking to them about some of the things they have to do, help them understand why they have to do them, and help them make an informed decision as to whether that is an effort they want to put in, so you don't waste a lot of time on someone who's got a mismatched expectation, and then help them understand how they can contribute to and become part of your community. With that, I will move to Q&A, and I'm going to take the liberty of asking the first question. Why didn't any cadets apply to the A1RC, the Cadet Recruiting and Retention vacancy at the wing level? I don't know, but we will be re-releasing it soon. We are moving it to a phase 3 requirement from a phase 4 preferred. The previous vacancy had a phase 4 requirement. So I think it would be great to get a cadet on the wing recruiting and retention team, and I hope we get some applicants. With that, I'm going to bring down my slides, turn on my camera, and I look forward to the discussion.
Colonel Gerstein, I did pop the link into the chat of the document that you had requested.
Outstanding.
So in the chat, everyone, is a Google Docs PDF that Colonel Gerstein wrote explaining some recruiting efforts. I would recommend everyone download that and view it at your leisure.
One quick correction. I didn't write that. That came from National. I don't want
Ah,
to take credit
gotcha.
for something I didn't write. Okay. So we have about 10 minutes before this aircraft flies into my head. It's doing some slow flight practice. So let's get some questions going. Okay, I see someone in the chat who can't unmute their microphone.
Yeah, we got the microphones muted for the time being. If you just want to type your question right into the chat there, I'll go ahead and read it out for you. That way we don't have like a whole bunch of people talking at once and talking over people.
Very wise room moderator. It's almost like you've done this a couple of times before today.
This is my third one.
Well, to address the other question or comment, Feedback National Headquarter about moving National Open House Week to September rather than April. I anticipate that National will probably not move that based on their attempt to bend that membership curve soon. But my hope is that if it's very successful, it's something that gets repeated again, ideally in September, as you noted with, well, I don't need to read you all the reasons you wrote. They're all very good reasons.
Question here from Dolphin. Any questions to help a very rural area with recruiting?
Yes, so I would say take advantage of this virtual environment that we're in right now. My understanding is one of the challenges with rural areas can be travel times to meetings and things like that. Well, I had a great commute to the conference this morning, really spectacular. There was a little bit of traffic. My 10-month-old left some toys in my way, but that was it. So find out where people are virtually, find out where people are in real life and advertise there, but take advantage of the virtual environment to overcome those distance barriers. I would also be happy to have a more in-depth discussion about you. Shoot me an email and we can set up a time to talk about it further where we can discuss your specific challenges and we could brainstorm some ideas on creative ways you might be able to move forward.
How to follow up on these great ideas, additional resources. Another question.
Okay. I also saw a request for my email address in the chat. I'm going to put that in. There we go. Additional resources. So that's a very broad request. There's of course the hard copy recruiting and retention material that National puts out. There's the Facebook group online, the National one, that you can use to connect with other recruiting and retention officers. Here's your fellow recruiting and retention officers. There's your creative ideas. There's sessions like this. But I'm curious, do you have any idea of what types of additional resources you're looking for? Can you narrow that a little bit?
So I'm going to go ahead and bring that person in.
Okay.
And if
great.
they have a microphone, they are more than welcome to unmute their microphone to have that discussion.
Yeah, hi, this is Captain Billigmeyer from the Frederick Composite Squadron, and we have a very rich environment with many, many different organizations here, and I really want to put together a targeted, specific mechanism whereby we can start reaching out to fill the positions that we have. COVID has impacted us like others. We have a core group of excellent people, but I'm in the process of identifying very urgent needs like our ES to start filling some of the things that are going on here, and our retention and historian and a few others. And so your thoughts on reaching out to the community with these specific needs really struck a note with me. So that's what I'm looking at, is putting together that plan for reaching out and then handing it off to a newly acquired recruiting officer.
I think that's a great approach. What I would recommend is that you start thinking about how to sell those positions in non-CAP specific terms. I have some vacancies that we put together at the squadron I commanded that I would be happy to share. Feel free to shoot me a note. That's anyone. Feel free to shoot me a note. Happy to share those. And look at also where in your community those people might be. So if you're looking for ES, what organizations might have the skills that you're seeking, and how can you connect with those organizations and maybe find someone who's willing to give a little more.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Question here, as we move to in-person meetings, what suggestions you have to continue to maintain your virtual participants, and how can you do both at the same time? That's tough.
Yeah, that is absolutely tough. It's going to be a balance. So as you move to effective in-person meetings, you're not going to be able to really, live stream all of it. But what you can do is you can pick certain key sessions sometimes and make sure you are streaming those sessions so people can still virtually participate. Say you're doing a aerospace education lecture, you can stream that part online. Say you're having a senior member planning meeting, you can have people dial into that or have that part in Teams. There are also certain things that you can do entirely outside of meetings. For example, finance committee meetings. Now I know that's not the most gripping, but those can be done entirely virtually on off nights. You can still have on occasion deliberately all virtual meetings, maybe once or twice a quarter if you wanted to do that. So I'm sure there are other creative ideas out there. Again, I don't have all of the answers, but those are some things that come to mind for me is picking and choosing which parts of the meeting you're going to show, and it's got to be enough that people feel involved. The other thing is for the parts that you cannot do virtually, either through constraints of bandwidth, you can't stream it, you don't have webcam there, or it simply won't work, you can have a strong internal public affairs effort to still pitch those, not pitch those, still make members aware of those, and make them feel involved and included, even if they're only maybe hearing about some parts of it after the fact.
All right, there's another question here from Aaron. There's a model rocketry program, but what about a model aviation workshop in competition? I guess that would be more of an airspace education question more than recruiting, but it's definitely something to look into, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's a spectacular idea. I see no reason we couldn't do that. If that's something that you're willing and able to put together, I'd say reach out and let's link you up with the right people. And if it's something you just think would be an awesome idea but don't have the resources to put together, reach out and let me know that too, and we can start seeing if we can find something like that. I see no reason not to do that as long as it can be done safely in person in this environment.
All right, thanks for that one. Captain Kellogg found that when a new member is helped by a mentor, they stay longer and participate more frequently. Giving a new member a specialty track early usually helps. Could LinkedIn be useful for recruiting?
So yes, excellent points on all of that. Linking up with a mentor is key. Getting that specialty track early, knowing what you're going towards, all of that is absolutely important, and it does help keep them. LinkedIn absolutely could be used. So one of the things that Volunteer Match does is it pushes to LinkedIn, and when we had our setup at Tuskegee, those adverts would show up on LinkedIn. But there's also a lot of professionals on LinkedIn that might just be interested. I've talked to some of my colleagues about CAP, and they say, why do I never see articles on LinkedIn? Why do I never see any of this stuff on LinkedIn? That's because we're not putting stuff there. So work with your public affairs teams, share things from your own profiles as you can, and help get that word out there.
All right, thank you. Any other questions as we we got a few more minutes if we need it. I believe the next general session doesn't start till a little after 4 o'clock. Any other questions before we finish up? Using Indeed for recruiting. That's an option. That's a one I never thought of. That's a little probably harder to do though.
No, I'm not familiar with that one. I will take a look at it.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, Colonel Gerstein, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you everyone else for participating. If you did not get the link for the survey, I'm going to go ahead and drop it in there one more time into the chat. Make sure you fill that out. You'll probably lose it once you leave the room, so I would recommend clicking the link before you jump out of the room here. The sessions this session was recorded. I actually started recording this one on time, as opposed to my other two that I missed up by a few minutes. So I don't know when the recordings will be available, but they will be available to go back and look at it at a later date. So thank you everyone for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.
I'm going to drop my email in chat one more time. And again, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for caring about our organization. And thank you for all you're doing. Have an awesome rest of your weekend.
Goodbye, everybody.